back to the channel. Kinder Knight here, and in today's episode we are finally getting around to doing some building work within our fortified city walls of Dukesbrough. And yes, I have finally come up with a name for this place that I am very happy with. And so, giving some thought as to what the first building should be and what I felt would make the most sense to do, it was really a no-brainer as I settled on the city stables, and as well as a few townhouses to start. Being that the stables would be located near the entrance of the city really works and fits in well with the world's lore. Being that the stables would play a significant role in most of the major towns and cities throughout the kingdom, as by law, by order of the king, that all horses, mules, and donkeys must be stabled while inside the city or town walls. And this law was set in place to cut down on the amount of waste in the streets that would be left behind by those animals. With cleaner streets, it would act to effectively help in cutting down on infectious diseases and outbreaks such as the plague, as well as help to attract more merchants and travelers. But the stable law would also serve as an effective means of taxation, as the lord of the town or city would collect a percentage of the stable's income, then in turn pay a percentage back to the crown. And so the stable law would be rigorously enforced. First offenders are fined, whereas repeated offenders will be more heavily fined, as well as face jail time or put in the stocks if they could not pay the heavy fine, and or have their horses confiscated and sold at auction, or in more extreme cases, have their horses butchered and used as feed for the Lord's hounds, with the nobility being completely exempt from under this law. And so those who would make their way to the cities and towns where this law is enforced, and if they so happen to be accompanied by a mount, then by law they would have to pay a fee to stable their animal. So I hope that painted a clearer picture as to how the role the stables would play, and how it also serves as a stable income for not only the stable master who manages it, but also to the lord and king. And now once I add the final touches to this building, we'll be ready for the tour. Alright guys, and we are back. And now we're gonna go ahead and check out the buildings that we just completed within that time lapse. And I think it all came together very nicely. I'm really loving the aesthetic vibe I'm getting thus far. But what we really came here for is this building right here, which is the stables here in Dukesbrough. And as you guys just learned from the lore, is just how important this building is for the Lord, the stable master, and the people who live and work around it, and also would be of need of his services. With many a weary travelers paying the stable master to stable, look after, and care for their steeds while they may be in town on business, but also doubling as a kind of small inn where travelers can stop off and grab a bite to eat and get some rest. And so that area over there would serve as the small inn and rest stop where the stable hands and groomsmen or a weary traveler needing a place to rest would stay after stabling their steed. So we will be definitely getting to that and checking that out as well. But before we do, we're going to go ahead and check out the main house or the stable master's and his family's private residence first. So we're going to go ahead and open the door there. And as we step inside, we have this very rustic aesthetic feel, you know, very wood and stone. I really wanted to just set that atmosphere and really capture what I feel is the medieval vibe. We have a few empty barrels with supplies in the corner there. And way in the back here, we can find where the residents who live here keep their beer and maybe their wine. And of course here we have wood stored under the stairs, keeping dry for the fire, with some small cabinetry here, adding a little bit more storage space to the area. So moving on into the main area, we have a fireplace here where it could be used to cook some meals, as well as its main purpose as heating the house. And towards the front of the house, we have the family's dining table, where at the end of a long, weary day, the stable master's family could sit down together and enjoy their supper. It's a very tight, but it's still very cozy and quaint of living space they have here. And now this area over here, with this wattle fence separating part of the room. And if we take a step over and we go in through here, we can see we come into the family's bathroom or their latrine. And in here they would keep two buckets. One would be for liquid waste, which as the other would be for solid waste. And so they would come back here whenever they had the urge to relieve themselves and have some level of privacy, with the fence right there blocking, separating the room. And they have a barrel of water here where they can clean themselves, clean their hands, or perhaps their face, or whatever it may be for them to feel clean. And so that's that, and we're gonna go ahead and move on and check out what's on the next floor. And so, making our way up the stairs. Now, on this floor is what I would consider the stable master's private quarters, although it isn't too private. We have this nice big bed right here where he himself would sleep along with his wife. We have this nice table here with a decorative plant, and also we have a sword here where the stable master keeps it for protection while he's in bed and while he sleeps. And now the stable master would want to keep a sword within arm's reach at all times, even while he's asleep in bed, which is because there would be many people, mainly strangers to him, moving in and around his home at all times, and so he would find it wise to keep a sword at his side to protect himself and his family from harm or any danger or threats to his business. And maybe you guys can notice, but this room isn't really set up like a peasant's house would be set up. It's more so set up like the nobility would, where there's plenty of nice places to sit. We have some nice skin rugs on the floor, and the area is generally clear of most unnecessary clutter. And of course, this was purposeful because I really wanted to convey that the stable master does make a really good living. Now, he isn't rich, but he does make a healthy income by running the stables. But keeping in mind that the Lord would collect a very hefty percentage of the stable's profits. And so after the Lord would collect his percentage of the profits, whatever the stable master is left with is what he has to live on. And so he isn't doing too bad. As you see, we have a chest here with some coin. Maybe he's saving up for emergencies. And just to point out a little bit of detail is you guys see these little patches of straw, and that is just there because obviously this is a stable and there'll be a lot of straw around, so it would get tracked around through all the floors and such. But we're gonna go ahead and head up to the next level. And now on this floor we have another nice sized bed, whereas the stable master's children would sleep, or maybe as well as it could serve as another bed for a paying customer. In the case the inn runs short on space, and instead of losing that coin or turning away business, the stable master would find it wise to, maybe open up this floor to guests and rent out the beds up here as well, better than losing that coin. As you can see, I have some more simple little resting pallets there on the floor, as well as a couple of more over here. And also there's laundry hanging up again, adding to that really gritty rustic vibe I am going for, with those ropes hanging from the beams is a real nice touch, I think. I'm really digging how this space turned out. Everything in the room here really does feel purposeful, and it doesn't feel like anything is just here for chance or for no reason at all. And I think that's very important, is when you're building is to make things make sense and not just necessarily add things just to add it. But we're gonna go up here, and as you see up on this level too, we just have more areas where our stable master could rent out spaces for people to sleep. And he wouldn't want to lose that coin because he would want to maintain a certain standard of living for himself and his family. So yeah, again, this is supposed to be his private residence for him and his family, but as I mentioned, it actually isn't too private. But again, when it comes to making that money, he's going to do whatever he has to do to maintain. And if that means renting out spaces of his own private home, then so be it. But we're going to go ahead and exit out from here and go ahead and check out some of the other parts of the stable. So again, over here, we do have the entrance to the main stable area. But before we check that out, real quick, let's swing back around to this area first, this little stable area over here. And so now, the way the stables would work would be the customer in need and looking to stable their horse would be offered 3 different stabling options that they could choose from. Whereas, being the more desirable options would come with a more hefty premium. So, depending on how much one has to spend on the stabling of their horses, that would largely dictate where they would have to leave their animal. So obviously here would be option 1, where horses would receive minimum care and protection As you can see, this part doesn't offer much in the line of protection for the horses that would be stable here from things like thieves or perhaps even the elements. So that would mean that those poor horses would have to deal with the cold weather or perhaps rain or snow that could occur while being stabled here. But the horses here would have access to water, as we have a water trough here. And over here we have this feeding trough where we have things like grass and hay and stuff like that, stuff that they would like to eat. And there you go. That's choice one, the first option for those who don't have much coin to spend on their horses stabling. So let's go ahead and move on. We will make our way back to the main entrance of the stables here. And now here would be what I refer to as option 2 stabling, where travelers would pay a little higher premium to have their horses kept and looked after here. It is definitely an upgrade compared to option 1, but still has some room for improvement. But in this case, this area does at least provide some form of fencing to enclose the yard, acting to protect the horses from wanderers and vagrants, or at the very least, making it a little bit more difficult to try and steal a horse. It also provides a more stable and better roof from the elements for the horses. And here we have plenty of food troughs for the horses to eat from, as well as plenty of the finest hay for them to eat and maybe lay upon. And here we have a nice water trough for them to drink. So yeah, this would be the obvious choice for those with a little bit more money to spend. And so here we just have the stables outhouse, and this would be where the travelers staying at the inn or the stable hands or those workers would come to relieve themselves right here at this outdoor toilet. And then over here in the corner, we have this basin of water where they can freshen up and wash their hands or, have a little bird bath. So that's about it for that. So I think we'll just go ahead and move on. And now we come into the main stables. Option 3, the choice for someone with a lot more coin to spare, someone like a traveling merchant of sorts. And it's kind of hard not to see why, as this area would offer your horse with the maximum in protection. Complete protection from thieves, where at night the barn doors could be closed, as well as complete protection from the outdoor element. And so those poor beasties don't have to stand outside in that cold, wet rain or snow. The horses here would be kept nice and warm and also receive the maximum in horse care. And just looking around, I think if any of us was in the same, found ourselves in the same scenario, and if we had to make a choice, if we had the extra coin to spare, I think we would all generally choose this option as well, especially when it's compared to the other two options. But there is more to see, so let's go ahead and move on. We'll open the door here. And now we come into the inn portion of the stables. So after you pay for the stabling of your horse, you're tired and weary from your travels. And so you come into the inn here to finally have a nice, warm, home-cooked meal. So you go ahead and you find a spot here at the table. There aren't too many choices to choose from. Then you can go ahead and order that hot meal and maybe some drink. Whereas over here at this nice little oven station, the ale maid or cook would prepare your meal and bring it to you when it is ready. I'm really loving the overall design of this place, really feeling that medieval vibe. We have some sausages, garlic, onions, and maybe some leeks and rabbits hanging from the ceilings. We have this table here where we have some fresh bread that was just prepared. We have this little station here where we have some more food, some pies and apple, as well as this shelving area here where we're keeping some more ingredients for cooking. And here is where we keep our beer. And on the floors, we have lots of straw because, again, we're in the stables, and so straw would be constantly tracked across the floors. And so you might notice that little detail quite often throughout the build. I like to think of it as a good little way to tell a story. And so that's that. So let's go ahead and move on. So now, after you've paid your stable fee and paid for your meal, and if you had a little more extra coin to spare, then maybe you would want to purchase a bed for the night or nights, depending on how long you would need to be in the city. So now we do have some decent beds located up here that could be rented out, and as you see, they're off the ground, so that's definitely a plus. But the beds do sit above, right above the horses, And you could imagine the smells from the horses woofing up, and it would smell pretty bad up here. But again, if you find yourself having to purchase a bed here in the stables, it would probably be no doubt because you are running low on coin after having to pay for your stabling fee and your meal. So you would just have to be content with what you have. And as you see, we have multiple beds located up here for those travelers that would need to rent them. So I will move on with the tour. We'll go ahead and open this door here. So now we come into the room where the groomsmen and stable hands would sleep, but also there are some extra beds kept up here for paying customers. So we do have this big bed here. Maybe a traveler staying at the inn is lucky enough to snag this one. Then he wouldn't have to settle for one of those beds right out above the horses. Then over here we do have some more bed choices. They are off the ground, but they are also hardwood surfaces, so not the comfiest, but maybe you would prefer that to sleeping on one of the beds on the floor. And so of course here we have some of those simple beds of hay on the floor. Again, not the kind of bed you would probably find at a proper inn, but it's the best the stables can provide. And as you see, we have some more areas for sleeping here, some more beds. It's really communal, and we have some supplies here stored under the stairs. And now up on the wall we do have a bit of decor in the form of a deer skull. And now the stable master didn't go out of his way, but he did feel the need to have some kind of decor to kind of make this place feel more legit, feel more like a real inn. So I guess kind of adding to the whole rustic feel. And up here we just have some more pallets of hay for sleeping. And we're gonna go ahead and hop on the ladder and make our way to the top, where we'll find more piles of hay around, as well as some more of those little pallets of hay on the floor for sleeping. Really shabby, really simple beds. Plenty of space for those who can afford better and more decent accommodations. I think the inn portion also came out really cool. The details are there. Glancing up, you can see the ropes hanging from the wood beams and also the cobwebs. Really wanted to just create that rustic, communal living spaces that, again, I personally feel is the medieval vibe. And in my opinion, I would say I think I accomplished that. All in all, I am quite pleased with how the stables and inn turned out. And so that's that. We do have those 3 townhouses left on the tour to check out. We saved for last. And now they are going to be all pretty much the same format, but I will go ahead and show them to you anyways, being this is the first video. But I think in future videos I won't even bother showing you all every commoner's house unless it plays a particular part in the city's lore or is a place of interest. Otherwise, in these videos we'll be mainly focusing on main buildings such as the blacksmith, the baker's shop, the tailors, stuff like that, etc. So we are going to go ahead and open the door to the first house here. And as you see, keeping in lines with that rustic aesthetic, I like to think that I'm getting better and better at portraying that medieval feel that homes like this would have looked and felt like. We have this big oven over here for cooking. As you can tell, it's hot with the smoke billowing up. We have this table here in the center of the room for some meal preparation. And over here we have this really handy kitchen tool here, in which you'll start to notice quite often throughout my builds, but I like to think of it as a butter turner or maybe a mixing pot or a grain grinder, something like that. I really like how it looks and it works. So then at the tops we have some storage where we can store some ale and beer and some other supplies. Very important to keep as much off the floors as possible, as well as some more supplies here. Everything we would own would ideally be pretty much kept inside, which is why there's so much clutter around. Looking around, we have some straw on the floor. Over here we have a stool for some sitting, things on the wall here. And then over here we have some kitchen utensils hanging on the wall as well. Just trying to really cram as much little details as possible in this space. In the end, it all comes together and I think it really works. So here on this floor is where the family that lives here would eat. We have this nice big table in the center that seats everyone. And of course, we have some more junk and supplies lying around. Also, we have these braziers to help with the lighting, but more importantly, to help with the heating of the room. And now, back here, behind these curtains, here we have the bathroom or latrine. And again, we have 2 buckets, one for liquid waste and the other for solid waste. It all feels very cramped and tight space, but I think that's what gives it its character with all the supplies and empty barrels and boxes everywhere you turn. Lots of things that, we may see as needless junk. But I think that's kind of what makes for good peasant home aesthetic. They don't like to get rid of anything because they probably feel that they can find some use for it somewhere down the line. Because, money would be tight. So being able to repurpose junk is essential. So now let's go ahead and make our way up the stairs. And so now this is obviously the last floor in the house. Up here is where we hang our laundry to dry. Perfect place for it as well because we have that nice window right there that's letting in that air. Then if we make our way into here, we find the room or area where the family of this residence sleeps. We have a bed here, and a couple of much more shabbier beds here on the floor. Very simple, very rustic. We have some cabinetry here behind the bed to store some of their belongings, and maybe they would eat up here also from time to time, which is the reason for all the bowls. A pitcher of water and some cups here. And then we turn around over here. We have some more storage, and also we have a table here with some bread, and of course we have a brazier here to help heat the area up, keeping in mind that they would close this shutter especially at night to keep the heat in. So that was peasant house number 1. Again, as I mentioned, most of the commoners' houses will have a similar layout because I do have a certain pattern I want to follow, and but I'll do my best when designing them to try to change them up a little bit and try to make it, something fresh and new, still while sticking to that formula. And I think I'll cut it at that. And I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you all for joining me on this tour of the stables and a townhouse. I hope you all enjoyed it. I really am trying my best to improve on my interior building skills here and having them make more sense and be more practical, at least in the medieval sense. For the future buildings I'll be doing in this city, I really want to stick with a more realistic aesthetic. So most of the common buildings will follow a general similar pattern, and I really think it makes sense because my world's lore is grounded in reality, and I really want my buildings to reflect that. And so I hope you guys will be okay with that. I do promise, well, at least I'll try to make things as interesting as possible. And maybe we'll receive some elements of low fantasy along the way. But all in all, I am still very excited and feeling very inspired about finally getting around to doing some building work within the city of Dukesbrough. I have some really cool ideas going forward, and I hope you guys will join back with me to see them. As always, you guys can do me a solid by liking and subscribing to the channel. And until next time, I bid you a farewell.